Hello, amazing students. Welcome to English with Sophie. Keep track of your score as we go. I'll ask you questions throughout this lesson, and by the end, you'll know exactly where you stand with sentence structures. If you get more than 50% right, your English rhythm is already advanced. You speak English every day. You know thousands of words. Your grammar is solid. But here's the question that matters. When you speak, do you feel like you're translating thoughts into English or releasing them naturally? Take 5 seconds and think about your last English conversation. Were you building each sentence piece by piece, or did the words just flow? If you're still constructing sentences in your head before speaking, you're already one step behind native speakers. And that gap. It's not about vocabulary or grammar rules. It's about something completely different, something you were never taught in school. If you're still building sentences, you're already one step behind a native speaker. Let me show you why. Many learners think fluency equals two things: lots of vocabulary and perfect grammar. They study verb tenses. They memorize irregular verbs. They practice conditionals until their brain hurts. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Native speakers break grammar rules constantly. They say me and John went to the store instead of John and I. They use less when they should say fewer. They split infinitives without thinking. Yet they still sound completely natural, completely fluent. Why? Because natives don't speak in grammar structures. They speak in rhythm chunks. They group words based on breathing and meaning, not textbook rules. So what if sentence structure isn't about rules at all, but timing? Let me play you two recordings. Recording 1. I have been thinking about this problem for several days now. Grammatically perfect. Every word in the right place. Recording 2. I've been thinking about this problem for a few days now. Same meaning, slightly messier grammar. But the second one feels more fluent, more natural. What's the difference? It's not the words, it's the breathing and grouping. The rhythm. The pauses. Native speakers don't deliver sentences like robots reading a script. They deliver them like jazz musicians playing a familiar tune, with natural breaks, emphasis, and flow. The first recording sounds like a textbook. The second sounds like a conversation. Let's unlearn the way you were taught to build sentences. Think about how you learned English in school. Your teacher probably showed you sentence structures like building blocks. Subject plus verb plus object. Add an adjective here. Insert an adverb there. Follow the formula. Get the answer right. It's like a sentence factory, piece by piece, rule by rule, perfectly assembled. But here's what they didn't tell you. Native speech isn't a factory. It's a river. Water doesn't flow in straight lines or follow blueprints. It moves around rocks, finds the path of least resistance, speeds up and slows down naturally. That's exactly how native speakers use sentences. They don't construct. They flow. And that flow follows invisible patterns that have nothing to do with grammar textbooks. So what are these invisible units that carry English like current? Learners think in complete sentences. I need to say this full thought correctly before I open my mouth. Natives think in idea bursts. They release one chunk, then the next, then the next. I was thinking, chunk, about what you said. Chunk, and honestly, chunk, I'm not sure I agree. Each chunk is a small package of meaning shaped by rhythm, not grammar. These are called thought chunks. And here's the key: native speakers don't plan the whole sentence first. They release the first chunk and let the rhythm carry them to the next one. It's predictive, not planned. Their mouth knows what's coming before their brain finishes the thought. If you could hear these chunks, you'd never build again. You'd release. Here's a quick test. Can you recite a famous movie line? Maybe "May the force be with you," or "I'll be back," or "You can't handle the truth." Of course you can. But can you remember the last English sentence you built carefully in a conversation yesterday? Probably not. Why can you remember entire movie lines but not your own sentences? Because you remember sound patterns, not grammar structures. Your brain stores rhythm, melody, and emotional tone, not subject-verb-object arrangements. When you recall that movie line, you're not reconstructing it. You're replaying the sound. That's how natives store language too. In chunks of sound, not rules. That means your brain already knows how to learn, but you've been feeding it the wrong diet. Let me reveal something powerful: the native loop. It works like this. First, listen to a phrase. Second, predict what comes next. Third, repeat it until your mouth remembers. Listen, predict, repeat. Listen, predict, repeat. Native speakers grow this loop from birth. A baby hears "time for bed" 500 times. Eventually, when someone says "time for," The baby's brain predicts bed before hearing it. That prediction strengthens the rhythm pathway. Adults can do this too, but most don't, because they're too busy studying grammar rules instead of training the prediction loop. This loop is a feedback rhythm, not a grammar drill. And it's the single most important difference between fluent speakers and learners. Let's compare how your brain learned your first language. When you were a child, did anyone teach you grammar? Did your parents explain verb conjugations or sentence patterns? Of course not. You absorbed them. You heard your mother say, "Don't touch that," 1,000 times. You heard "I'm going to the store" in dozens of situations. You never thought about subjects or objects or past participles. You just repeated what you heard in the context where you heard it. Repetition plus context. That's it. That's how you learn to speak perfectly in your first language without a single grammar lesson. You absorbed patterns naturally through constant exposure and imitation. Your brain built invisible rules that you still use today without thinking. So why are adults still chasing rules instead of rhythm? Every adult language learner hits the same wall. They think while speaking. You're in the middle of a sentence and suddenly your brain interrupts. Wait, is this the right tense? Should I use which or that? Did I put the adverb in the right place? Boom, your rhythm collapses. The sentence sounds robotic. The listener notices the pause. This is the overthinking zone, and it kills fluency. Here's the uncomfortable truth: thought kills rhythm. Fluent speech happens before thinking. Natives don't have an internal editor reviewing every word. Their mouth leads, their brain follows. The sentence flows out before they consciously analyze it. That's what makes it sound smooth and confident. So how do you turn thinking off without losing control? Here's the secret. Natives don't plan sentences. They predict the next word. Their brain is always half a second ahead, anticipating what comes next based on rhythm and context. You start a sentence, "I was just," your brain predicts, thinking or wondering or about to say. The next word arrives automatically because the rhythm pulls it forward. This is called predictive speech, and it works because natives have heard these patterns thousands of times. Their brain recognizes the rhythm and fills in the next chunk without conscious effort. Prediction activates rhythm and speed. It removes hesitation. It makes speech feel effortless. Now we'll rewire that instinct consciously, no grammar required. You want a technique? I'm going to give you something better, a behavioral shift. Here it is. Speak in breath-length chunks, not sentence-length goals. Don't think I need to say this whole idea perfectly. Instead, think I'll release one breath's worth of words. Try it right now. Take a breath and say, "I think that." Breathe. What you're saying. Breathe. Makes a lot of sense. Notice how natural that feels. You're not building a long sentence. You're releasing short bursts. Each burst matches your breath. This is how natives speak. They don't hold their breath until the sentence ends. They pause, breathe, and continue. Once you feel this pattern, your mouth will start teaching your brain. Here's something most teachers won't tell you. Your tongue knows before your mind does, but only if trained. This is called muscle fluency. It's not about learning new words. It's about repeating natural phrases until your mouth remembers the shape, the rhythm, the flow. Think about typing. When you type common words like the or and, do you think about each letter? No. Your fingers move automatically. That's muscle memory. Speech works the same way. When natives say, "I was gonna," their mouth moves without thought. The muscles remember the pattern. Your job isn't to memorize grammar. It's to train your tongue. We're going to feed your tongue what natives feed theirs. Why does parroting movie lines work better than grammar study? Because imitation rewires two things at once: predictive memory and rhythm sensitivity. When you echo a native speaker, you're not just copying words. You're copying melody, stress, timing, pauses. Your brain starts recognizing patterns. Your mouth starts reproducing them. After enough repetition, those patterns become automatic. You stop thinking. You start flowing. That's why shadowing, repeating what you hear immediately, is one of the most powerful fluency tools. But here's the problem. Most learners do it wrong. They copy the words but miss one crucial ingredient. Imitation fails if you miss one crucial ingredient. What is it? Silence. Learners copy words but not pauses. They rush through sentences trying to sound fluent, but they end up sounding breathless and unnatural. Here's the truth. Silence defines structure. It's the punctuation of speech. When a native speaker pauses, they're giving you time to process one chunk before starting the next. They're creating rhythm. They're emphasizing meaning. Without those pauses, even perfect grammar sounds wrong. Try this sentence 2 ways. First, no pauses. I was thinking about what jag and I didn't agree. Now with pauses, I was thinking about what you said. And honestly, I really don't agree. Completely different. The second version sounds confident, natural, fluent. Once you master silence, you'll finally sound fluent without even trying. Here's something that will change how you see fluency forever. Confidence isn't the result of fluency. It's the cause. Most learners think, once I speak perfectly, I'll feel confident. But it works backward. When you trust your rhythm, when you release chunks without overthinking, when you pause without fear, your grammar aligns automatically. Confidence creates flow. Flow creates correctness, not the other way around. I've seen students with weak grammar sound incredibly fluent because they speak with conviction and rhythm. I've seen students with perfect grammar sound hesitant because they second-guess every word. The difference isn't knowledge, it's trust. So what does fluency actually feel like inside the body? Most learners treat speaking like a mental exercise, but fluency isn't just in your head, it's in your body. Watch native speakers closely. They use gestures, they shift their weight, they release tension with micro-breaths. They don't stand stiff and recite sentences, they embody rhythm. When someone says, I don't know, their shoulders might rise slightly. When they say absolutely, their hand might emphasize the word. These aren't random movements. They're part of the rhythm. Speech is physical. Your breath, your posture, your facial expressions, they all contribute to how natural you sound. Natives speak with their whole body, not just their mouth. And this is where fluency becomes effortless, but only if you stop forcing it. Learners fear mistakes, so they tighten up. They speak slowly and carefully, trying to avoid errors. But here's what happens, that caution kills rhythm. And without rhythm, every mistake becomes obvious. Natives make mistakes constantly. They stumble over words. They restart sentences. They use incorrect grammar. But you barely notice because their rhythm keeps flowing. The mistake becomes invisible inside the stream of speech. Think of it like a river with a few rocks. If the water flows strongly, you don't focus on the rocks. But if the water moves slowly, every obstacle stands out. Natives flow through mistakes. Rhythm keeps them invisible. This brings us to the real secret behind native sentence structure. Here's the truth that textbooks won't tell you. Native grammar isn't learned. It's absorbed subconsciously through rhythm and prediction. Children never study grammar, yet they use complex structures perfectly by age 5. How? Because they absorbed the rhythm. They heard patterns repeat in context thousands of times. Their brain learned the invisible rules without conscious effort. You didn't learn grammar either, not in your first language. You absorbed it. And the same process works in your second language, but only if you stop studying rules and start absorbing rhythm. Sentence structure is a result, not a rule system. It emerges naturally when you train the prediction loop. So how do you build this intuition as an adult? Learners fear it's too late to retrain their brain. It's not. It takes 30 days of exposure and imitation, not years of study. Here's your simple plan. Every day, choose one native clip, a movie scene, a podcast segment, a YouTube video. Listen to 1 minute of it 5 times. Then echo it 5 times, matching rhythm and pauses exactly. Finally, reflect for 30 seconds. What chunks did you notice? What rhythm felt natural? That's it. One native clip, one echo session, one reflection. 30 days, your brain will start recognizing patterns. Your mouth will start reproducing them. Your confidence will grow. This isn't about perfection, it's about conditioning. But what happens when this conditioning becomes automatic? Remember the opening question? Do you sound fluent? Now you realize the answer was never about grammar or vocabulary. Fluency isn't speaking English, it's thinking in rhythm. When you stop building sentences and start releasing chunks, something shifts. Speech feels lighter. Words flow without effort. You pause without fear. You make mistakes without noticing. You sound natural because you're not performing, you're communicating. This is the freedom moment. And here's the beautiful truth. You were never missing grammar. You were only missing the rhythm that makes it breathe. From now on, every sentence will speak you. You won't speak sentences. They'll flow through you like water through a river. That's fluency. That's freedom. That's what happens when you finally stop building and start releasing.